We want to thank everybody for coming out on such a beautiful afternoon when there's a lot of other things you can do, but know that this is important meeting and information that we want to give out to you. Before we start, let's start with a prayer, please. Our gracious God, we thank you for all the blessings that you've given us. Thank you for leading us and guiding us. And Father, as we go through this meeting and the process and proposal, we just ask for your will to be done. Ask you to lead us and guide us. Help us to see where we need to be. Thank you most of all for Jesus. In his name we pray. Amen. The shepherds formed our committee in September last year. Our charge was to do the following: determine current conditions and future needs of our facilities, to discuss, study, and make recommendations for our congregation's future growth, facilities, and property, and how all ministry areas could be improved for future growth, include timelines for changes and cost analysis, and make recommendations to the shepherds how the areas can be approved and considered. The committee consisted of, and listen to these names if you don't know these, so that you have questions, you can go to one of these committee people. Joanne Hager, Bobby Hoffman, Tim Hawkins, Philip Jones, David Manny, Linda O'Brien, Randy Page, and myself, David Ponder. Our first meeting was September the 21st last year. We didn't meet every Wednesday, but several Wednesdays in between. On February the 26th, our shepherds announced that our proposal was to sell our current campus and relocate. A lot of thought, discussion, debate, and prayer went into the final proposal. We discussed renovating our current property, adding on to our current buildings, and we did discuss the possibility of planning another congregation. Our proposal includes renovating the current bus barn so that the food pantry can be operated out of it and demolishing the current food pantry building. The food pantry served 7,397 individuals in 2022, so you can see the food pantry is needed and is very busy. And if you want to see a reason why we need to demolish that building and move to the bus barn, I invite you to come to the food pantry about 10:30 Wednesday morning, and you'll see organized chaos when usually 3 trailer loads of food comes in, and we try to get it all in there. And the ladies do a tremendous job of getting it to fit everywhere. Our second recommendation is to consider the prospect of purchasing a large enough land tract to accommodate our needs at a new location, to find and purchase that land and a buyer for our current property. Please hear this. If God leads us to fulfill these proposals, it will be done for 2 main reasons. We have 156 children on our roll ages birth through 12 years old. It's 156. They are our future and will benefit more than those of us that are considerably older. So as we go through this, we don't want to think about, 2023 for sure, 24, 25. Think about our children, and that's just a portion of them that are birthed to 12 years old. Also, we're living in a fertile mission field. Cabot is going to grow tremendously. That will bring new Christians to town, along with people that we can share our love of God with as we go through. Chuck Ball will share our minister's perspective for these changes. Then David Manning will review our current facilities and explain why we're looking to do what has been proposed. Then Linda O'Brien will introduce our special guest and give you some information about land potential. And if time allows, we'll have question and answers at the end. If you're watching this and have questions later, feel free to contact anyone on the committee or one of the shepherds. If you would like a copy of the slides that you'll see up here, contact Susan Hawkins in the office and she'll get you a copy of those. Please pray individually and collectively for God to guide us all in this endeavor. Please pray for God's will to be done, not ours. Thank you.
Hey, good afternoon. Thanks for coming out and showing your support. I'll begin and tell you exactly where I am. I'm going to be really brief. I'm for moving off this plot of ground and buying land and building a bigger building, and I'll tell you why. I'm just going to shoot straight with you. We're a 2-service church. We've been a 2-service church for many, many years. Being a 2-service church, you might as well say you have 2 churches here. And nobody likes it when I say that, but that's very, very true. That's just the reality of it. And let me explain it from my perspective. There are maybe 2 people. On occasion, there are a few elders that will go to early service and stay for second. But for the most part, it is myself or TJ, whoever's speaking, and then the song leader that's here for both services. And so everybody else passes, and you gravitate to one service versus the other. That's just nature, isn't it? A lot of people, and the way our numbers show, most people like attending early service versus second, and that's fine. But the problem with that is we have one large family, and they don't all know each other. Okay, so I think if we go to one service, and it's not going to happen here. There's no way it can happen here. But if we eventually can go to one service, I think it improves our unity. We know each other better. That makes us more of a family. I mean, all of those things. I could go on and on and on. But I think it improves our worship. The singing is, and this is nothing against any of our song leaders. Our song leaders are very talented, but the singing can only be better when you put 600 people together instead of dividing them. So that's only going to improve. So to me, And I'm not looking at it from a financial perspective, and all of that that's not who I am. All of that will come to you as we go through the meeting. I'm looking at it from a spiritual perspective, and we need to be together as a family. And for 13 years that I've been here, we haven't been. We've done the best we could. This facility has served us very well, but still only able to have 2 services. If Cabot grows like they say it's going to grow, and we're going to hear more about that in a little bit, what are we going to do? Have 3 services? We're not prepared to absorb a significant amount of growth in this facility. We're not. Plus, once again, we need to have 1 service and all be together. I hope I've said everything I need to say. That's where I am. I think we need to be where we can be a 1-service congregation. A friend of mine, a very close friend of mine in Benton, Arkansas, he's from Benton. He moved back to his home congregation in late 2009. They were 2 services. They're basically the spitting image of us. They were 2 services. They took a big undertaking and said, we're going to build a bigger facility. We're going to be 1 service. We're bound in a term. We're going to do that. Financially, we're going to make it happen. They did it, and he said it's one of the greatest blessings because we're all together. And I'll stop with that. That's where I am. I'll answer any questions later if you have any.
I'm going to walk away. Well, so far, the first couple of people have said they are going to be real brief, and they were, and I hope you didn't get used to that. Because I have got the section that goes into great detail about our building. This format that you see here, I'm going to use throughout my whole presentation, jumping across our entire facility. Okay, I'm going to start with the 3 houses that we use for other ministries, and then I'm going to go to this building, but I'm going to use the same format. This format I've been using for probably 7 or 8 years. I've been giving this to the elders not every year, probably about every 18 months, just to give them an idea of here's the condition of our facility. Matter of fact, 3 or 4 years ago, they saw that and they saw the need and they saw a lot of things, and they upped our maintenance budget for the building drastically so we could take care of it a little bit better. So that's the reason for going through this detail. I inspect this building every 12 months, every year, to gather all this information and update that. We're going to start with the rental. The rental is in poor shape. You can see it's got a 1-year life. The rental foundation is bad. You can see all my comments. I'm going to comment. We did get a check from the insurance company for $6,000 back when we had hail damage back in the 3rd quarter of last year. We didn't spend that on the roof. We just kind of put that in the bank. But you can see the different categories that I'll list there. There's been in our plan that I gave the elders probably a year and a half ago for the first time, whenever this is not a rental for us, we need to demolish it because it's in that state, okay? So that's what the suggestion is, continues to be here. So whenever we don't have a renter for that place, we will demolish that, cut the tree down, and gravel from that all the way over to Friend's house for more parking. The next one is Friend's house. Friend's house, as you can see, you can just read through that. I'm not going to hit all that because I've got a lot of detail in some of the slides I want to make sure you understand. You can see my comments. Again, we got a check from insurance. We did not spend it on the roof. You can see with the plumbing and electrical and all that. Years, I estimate, is 6 to 8 years of life. In Friend's house, it's in better shape. At this time, basically no activity as far as a suggestion from this SALT team to the elders. There's no problems with the numbers that we serve there every day. Routine maintenance required is the only thing we have to worry with. Bus barn, as you know, the bus barn, just a metal building. It has no electrical, has no power, any of that stuff, no water, none of that. It's just a metal building. Okay, it's in good shape, 20 plus years of life. You can see who uses that building. We put a couple of vehicles. It's not big enough for all of our vehicles currently. Boy Scouts had storage there. There's some maintenance tools to maintain the vehicles there. The suggested action for that one is basic at this time, none. So this is the last building as the ones we go across this side of our parking lot, and that's the pantry. You can see it's full of red stuff because It's not in good shape. It's the oldest home that we have. The homes built on 2nd Street were built first in the 40s, somewhere in that time period. And you can see my comments there. Foundation is settling. It was made for a husband and a wife and a couple of kids. We got like 9 freezers, 1 million tons of canned goods, at least. A lot of food, a lot of storage, a lot of stuff goes on in this building, okay? So the roof is bad. Again, we got to check. We did not put a new roof on that building. We didn't know where we were going with that, so we just kind of banked that, put it back. The electrical was very, very poor. About 3 or 4 years ago, we ran separate circuits for all the freezers, dedicated lines, and refrigerators. The other regular lights and all the outlets in that building is the old wiring that you're scared to touch, okay? It's got a maxed out meter, 125 amp meter base and panel, so we can't do anything else with that. The plumbing's fair. At best, it's got a 2 to 3 year life. Suggested action there is because of the growth that we've had in the ministry that it uses this building. The operational limitations, as they've already said, if you want to see what goes on, be there on a Wednesday, and you better be there from a distance as you watch them, because it's kind of crazy to get the amount of food that they get in that building and the way they have to do it. It's all hallways like a house is built, okay? Same thing on the day that they pass out food. It has some safety issues, there's no doubt. So this building has an immediate trigger. We need to figure out what we're going to do with that. It's a very important ministry with the pantry, and it's in one of the worst buildings that we have. So what we did from there, and when we come up to a trigger like this, the committee, we started trying to figure out what do we need to do. It's a very important ministry to the community. So what are we going to do to take care of that? And you see some options. The first one is do nothing right now. Wait to see what other land comes up. And Linda's got some land information and she'll share with you some of that stuff. Option 2, remodel the bus barn. It's 1,200 square foot bus barn. Move that function of the pantry over to the bus barn. So that's taking all the vehicles out, okay, and converting that to operate as a pantry. So we've come up with a cost. So you can see we're going to totally, as I told you before, the bus barn has no power, no water, no heat and air, none of that. It's just a metal building. So to make that conversion, we're talking about wiring it all, putting everything else we need, is somewhere in the $66,000 range to do that, to convert the bus barn to a place to where we can operate the pantry ministry. So let's talk about the users for a minute. So they're not the only one in this building. We have other ministries and other staff and other things that goes on in this pantry building. About 800 square foot is used for the pantry ministry. So if we move them to the bus barn, they will automatically have an extra 400 square foot that they didn't have. The 400 square foot that's left over there is shared by the people that you see there. The teens and the children's ministry and things that they store on site here that they could get to easier rather than getting in the van or the bus and going down somewhere and getting some stuff, okay? We've already talked about, and David brought up already about the growth. We've come up with some numbers in 2021. The pantry ministry served 5413. 2022, you can see the jump to 73. So it's growing a ministry that is very much needed for our community. There's still another user or two there. One of them is the security. The security people have a small office there where they have some security items where they used to bring in a video from the parking lot and other places to that location. I visited with those people in the security team, and that hasn't been functioning for several years. Okay, so that is not a usable space. It's a small office anyway. And then as you see, the storage that goes on there by our staff, one of the things we'll have to figure out, what do we do with them, okay, if we take that building away, okay, and that would be the plan to do that. The price I gave you of $66,000 was to remodel the bus barn, but also demolish that building, gravel that entire area again for more parking. We also have Boy Scouts that store some stuff in that small office over in the pantry. Also, they store some stuff in the bus barn. Vehicle maintenance tools, well, the vehicle maintenance tools are not that much. They could remain in the bus barn, so that's not an issue. One thing we'll have to figure out is what we need to do with the vehicles. We got one new van already here. We got another new van coming. We kept the old van and the other 16-passenger van and the small van we use. So all of those, we have to figure out what we're going to do with that. Okay? Do they need to be under some sort of covering or something like that? The timing for moving, demoing the building, all of that stuff, probably somewhere in the 4 to 5 month range. Okay, so if we got a green light and say we're going to do that, we will start the planning process, meet with the people of the pantry and all that other stuff, what we're going to do at buses and start that process. Okay, education building. Education building, if you remember, is the second oldest building. It is that just this downstairs portion across the hall we added on the sides, of course, in 2015. But the other part, top and bottom of this B hall, is one of the oldest ones other than this one, this room, the auditorium, that we have. You can see the condition of everything. Of course, when we remodeled, we rewired everything, replumbed everything. It's new, okay? 2015 version, if you would. So you can see you got all good all the way through there. Plus, within just the regular maintenance budget this year, we started to do some painting. We painted the children's Bible hour room. We started to paint the hallways. You've noticed some blues and some greens. I even had an adult to say, well, if it was my bedroom, I'd be mad at you. I don't think I'd paint my bedroom that blue color. But for a kids building, that's great. And guess what? It's a kids building, folks. We're going to remodel it as if it's a kids building. So you'll see within the 2023 time frame, we'll continue to do some more painting over there to upgrade that, okay? So that's some more action that's going on. Going forward, all the data, and I have made a comment in here because we did this, as you heard David talk about, we did this and starting in September moving forward. So when we start looking at growth, and the rest of the slides has got also growth in with it, okay? So when we started looking at what to do, I didn't want to take numbers that pertain to a holiday around Thanksgiving or Christmas or anything like that. So I took all the numbers and the growth numbers that we have in our Bible classrooms and services for the month of October and averaged that. I stayed away from Thanksgiving, I stayed away from Christmas, so all that data is October data going forward. Again, this is the same format that we've always used, showing the elders, well, where are we with Bible classes on Sunday. You see what I've always done is just gone by classroom and by attendance and showed the capacity that each classroom has and then the growth. And you can see the ones that are yellow and red. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them that are past capacity. It doesn't matter if I got an adult class or a children's class. When I get 65% capacity, we got a problem. Number one problem is I need more teachers. I need more helpers. The students are not going to learn in a classroom that is that full, okay? All of that comes together. Can I put 12 kids in a classroom? Yes, I can. Are they going to learn as well? No, they're not. What am I going to have for teachers? Twice as much as I had to have before. And that's something we sometimes leave out. And that's an important factor. So you can see where we have problem. And remember, this is October data. It's not current, it's still October, and we have grown some since then. I went ahead and put the auditorium in the family center because that is Bible classes too. Of course, we'll never have a problem with Bible classes in here or the family center. It's a matter of just putting another chair in here. You got plenty of chairs. But I want to make a note of the bottom one, 65% capacity. It's a bigger need for us when it comes to teaching and being successful teaching children. Auditorium, you can see, and I'm going to bust through some of these because it's all pretty much green, no reds. Auditorium we built with all this remodel, everything's good with that. Nothing suggested there. Oh, excuse me, that was atrium. This is the auditorium, I'm sorry. So this is the absolute oldest building we have right here that we are standing in. You can see the condition that exists there. We did have a new roof put on this entire piece. It was quite complex to get all the leaks fixed. We just found out when I came in this morning, I was blessed with an intro that said, "Did you see the leak in the atrium?" Well, no, but thanks for telling me. Seriously, what you don't realize, and a lot of people don't realize, whenever you have a building like that, and this is extremely old, 45 years old, this wing is 27, that one part over there was 30 years old, we added on to it multiple builds, everything multiple. We had 6 different roof levels. 6 different roof levels to adding on to these buildings in all the directions that we did with 5 different types of roof material. At least we're down to 2 types of roof material, but we did spend $70,000+ and put a 40 mil membrane on this part, okay? They have worked out leaks everywhere. I got really one leak I found out just about this morning. They will fix that. But that shows how complex it is when we add on and add on and add on and keep adding on. You can do that, but it's complex stuff, okay? And it's important that we know that. You can see the air conditioners are good. All that stuff is good. And now let's look at some attendance numbers. Again, this is October. No holidays involved. You see the numbers there. For an average, 8:30, 284, 10:30, 231, 515. Capacity at that time, I came in and counted the chairs before we made any adjustments, and we made a couple of adjustments with chairs since October, was 390. So you can see how much room we had left in each one of those services, 106 and 159. But look at the note in yellow, because it's important. And some people think, oh, we put 390 people in. If you could get everybody to come in and sit where you want them to sit, hallelujah, you're going to be our head usher. Isn't that right, Joey? Joey says, I got the job open for you. It pays real good. I'm telling you, that's a true statement. We see when you get to 80% capacity, you begin having an issue. Because people that come in within the last 5 minutes of service, you talk them to come to the front row? Nah, that ain't happening. It just ain't happening. So there's a certain percentage and there's certain gaps in seats and all of that. When you get 80% capacity, you're beginning to have a capacity problem. I went up today and got the new numbers just to let you know. 8:30 service is 284 in October, 302 today. 10:30 service in October was 231, 280 today. So the total for today was 582 instead of 515. That's from October till today. 67 increase. So auditorium continued growth capacity. When we had, and I always like to look at our max Sundays, when we had combined service, and we had 2 of them in December, we moved in more chairs and tightened up as much as we possibly could, brought the number up to 472. We had 383 for those 2 Sundays. Look at the red note because it's very important. It's hugely important. About 3.5, 4 years ago, I had the fire marshal come in and examine the entire building. They looked at everything and allowed us, at that time we made David and Eric an office over here in the hallway, and we did away with a couple of doors, which was used to be our old entrance. And he allowed us to do that. But he walked in this room and he was very, very specific. Very specific. We need 5 foot between this. We need 5 foot from the wall. Never put chairs around the wall, ever. We did that both of these Sundays. We're breaking fire code, not meeting state or local fire code. Any Sunday we do that. It is an unsafe situation.
Did you know the inspector was here that day?
Huh?
The inspector was here that day.
Yeah, and he saw it. He saw it. So it's a very important thing. Numbers, and for us to track numbers and how we're seating people is an important thing for us to realize and continue to watch. So we could possibly add maybe 50 more chairs at the absolute most from that number by taking this row and taking the gap between rows and bringing it in the way we had it set up in 2015 when we first got finished remodeling this. It was super tight compared to today. It really was. We had more of a number, but yet we still had clearance. We could possibly add at most 50 more chairs in this room and be safe and be legal. We consider this an active trigger, not an immediate trigger like the pantry, an active trigger. An active trigger is in a report of long-range planning, is this is something that's active to us. And we need to begin to process to try to figure out what are we going to do, and we need to begin today. Because sometimes you have to make decisions that it might take 2 years to come to completion. Whatever that may be, whether that's building another building or whatever you're going to do. So do you have 2 years? God only knows if we have 2 years. So this is an active trigger for us. In long-range planning here at Cabot Church of Christ, I did it for many years. The first time in 2006, I headed it up in 2009 and 2012, and then somebody else did it in 2014. But anyway, it was the same format of that. We always asked ourselves, the very first thing is, do we want to move somewhere else or stay here? Well, let's look at the detail and see if we can stay here. The vote has always been we need to stay here because the numbers hasn't been like we have today. And even this time, the first thing we did as a committee is we sat down and asked the first question we have to ask ourselves, can we still stay here? Well, there's a lot of factors with that, but we need to start with that question. Because if your numbers are out completely over across the board and you can't put them in here, then what do you do to stay here? That's hugely important. Up to this time that we've done long-range planning, we've always been okay to say we want to stay here. We don't want to grow up to be a mega church because we will know in no one. We're not a country club, we're a church where people grow spiritually. That's what we want to do. So there's a couple of possibilities. We can activate every place that we possibly have. We'll set up more chairs in here, tighten this up to the max, and then we can activate for every Sunday, overflow in the chapel, overflow in there. All the big churches end up having to go to overflow. I don't know if you've ever been to a church visiting and been in an overflow, but you're not in the room where the preaching's going on. You're watching it with about a 3 or 4 second delay in another part of the building. Is that preferred? Well, no, it's not preferred, but sometimes you have to do that if you're not ready with the plan that you should have to go forward, okay? But still, it's an option. Number 2 is go to 3 services. Chuck's already said that. Well, we kind of don't like having 2. But it's still a possibility. Another one is to build a new auditorium at this location. To build a new auditorium at this location, the best place that I would assume and that I chose to present to the committee and to you today is right outside the door. And it's very expensive because we got a 6-foot slope from that back road to right out that door of this atrium hallway. 6-foot drop. The drainage from all that parking lot goes between this building and that next building in a culvert underneath. That culvert needs to be checked to see if it can handle that flow. You'd have to revamp all of that. You got a 30% plus cost in construction just because of all this. So you're talking about spending $6 to $7 million for a new auditorium to put it on this property. Let me show you where I was talking about. The blue section is what I'm talking about. The blue section right out. So the auditorium that you have today wouldn't stop where it does today. It would keep on going all the way. And you would go all the way and you would go up into a brand new auditorium that would be right over here in this corner. 1,000-seat auditorium right there in the blue section. Well, there's some negative that comes along with that. I'm going to lose 26 parking places. I got a drainage issue and I got a building flat surface? No, 6-foot difference from the upper street to down here. That's a tough thing to build around. Tough thing to build around. mandatory, you got to have an architect. We pulled this little section off of what we did in 2015 without an architect, because mainly we had this building, all we were going to do is fill the gap, and add a wing on both sides was still extremely hard to do. Extremely hard to do. And today, sitting where I wouldn't do it again without one. This one for sure I would not do without an architect. You'd have to, it'd be mandatory to have an architect. We'll go through the rest of the building. So the office complex, and I'm not going to go through a lot of this stuff, it's just a lot of detail about this. I'll go ahead and just tell you the next couple slides. The office complex is maxed. Every office is completely full. We have need for a few more office spaces. The conference room down here on this side is shared by people that do all the videos that you see. If you go in the conference room, they slid the cable all the way to the end, and I don't know where these new 4 elders are going to sit. I have no idea, because it's full with the elders that we have. So that's another issue. So we need a few places. We have the call that comes and visits with us and works out of the library. We're glad to have them do that. That's great. So you can see some of the red. We've got some revamping to do in the open area of the family center. We redid the kitchen years ago. The sound equipment, the video equipment in that section needs to be redone. So at the bottom of this slide, you can see I got an active trigger with this too. Not just this room. Also with this over here. This is all support stuff. This isn't Bible class stuff or sermons that goes on. This is support staff and everything else that happens when you're not here from Monday to Friday. Very important space. So we have an active trigger also with that. Family center, you can see the condition of everything there. Good, 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 good. The only thing we have negative about that end of the building, the finance people allowed us, the year before last, I got with David and Eric, and they put some money aside, and we replaced 2 air conditioners on this wing that was 22 years old. There's 4 that does the family center, and they're piggybacked to each other, and so we got 4 units that has to be replaced. They're still working today, but that's the only negative thing of going that way. Everything else has been updated or replaced. It's just space is the problem, or square footage is the problem. So really, we have no action at this time. We have one area, whenever time you're landlocked, you look at situations to where do I have room that I could gain any possible space between this building and the family center building is the space, and I'll show it to you on here, the next slide, that's the piece in red. Right here, it says storage right here back to the family center. That is a gap, actually. I don't even need a mic. You can hear me well. Boy, I'm a loud talking dude. Dorothy says that all the time. There's a space between this building and that one, and they built it that way on purpose because this is a 19 or a 40-year-old building, and that was a 22-year-old building. How do you put all that together and make all of that work? And well, we ain't gonna join them, they said. That's the way we do it. But it's a gap there. So you got about 3,000 square foot. Well, if you're landlocked, you say, I got to fill in every gap I can. So if we build that, then we could go in this hallway and have some more offices, more storage. We could have a second level up there. We could take it all the way out to the parking lot area, which is behind the kitchen in red, all the way over the storage that you see. When you go in it, we'll wall straight up. You'll have 2 floors. You're going to get 3,000 square foot at a whole lot of money. What did I say? $250,000 to $400,000. That's a lot of money for 3,000 square foot. And it's because the 2 buildings are so different. You can't add on to one to go to another one. I got to now build another building in the gap that supports itself solely, and then make it not all leak. Parking. You can see we have available parking we can pick up, 32 parking places where pantry is, 27 where the rental is. But remember what I said, if we did anything with an auditorium, you're going to lose some. So right now today, there's really not a parking issue. Going forward, there will be. We have checked our stats over the past 10 plus years. 2.6 people per parking spot, and that's worked out. I've gone out on Sundays counting the parking, and when we looked at the numbers, and boy, it hits it every time, just like that. So that formula is working. But whatever you start continuing to grow, then you're going to have parking problems. Okay, my last slide, and everybody's selling hallelujah. Whenever you're landlocked, we got to always be looking what land is coming up and can I afford to buy it. And they got to be in that mode if you're going to stay here. We've been in that mode for a very long time. Some detail just to let you know, and you see it up there. Everybody says, well, how much is this building worth? A lot of it's old, a lot of it's 40 years old. I ran some numbers. That's your square footage by section that you see there. Education, first and second floor, office, auditorium, family center, $36,885 at $170 per square foot, which is low. You're looking at $6.2 million. If you Google and look up at a common price for one story, one floor commercial building cost right now is running from $238 to $286, depending on what you have done. If you go 2 stories or multi-level, that goes to $569 a square foot. So you say, how good do you feel about this square footage and this number? It's a very low number. So I feel good about that. So that's the report that we came up with. Again, like I say, this format's been used here at Cabot Church for a very long time. It's the same kind of numbers. We just upgraded all of them. Remember, it's October data. I'm going to turn it back over to David now. We can go to the next section. We'll have question and answer at the end.
Hard act to follow. There we go. Okay. I don't like following him. He has way too much information, way too much detail, but he's very good at what he does. But what you've just heard was on this facility. And we all know that this is a growth issue. But when you're making a decision like we are trying to make here for this congregation, you need to look at another factor. What's going on in your town? Is your town growing? We know our church is growing. He already showed the numbers, but we know what's going on with your town. So, for those that don't know me, I'm a real estate broker. I've been selling real estate here in this town for 30 years. I want to take you back to 1993 when we first moved here. Population was between 8,000 and 9,000. And when I took families around showing them houses, their number one reason for coming to Cabot, and I know you know this answer, the school district. Of course, the schools are fabulous. They have been fabulous. They continue to be fabulous. They also want a small town community, low crime, low taxes. You have all the amenities of Little Rock, but you've got a military base. We have a lot of advantages, but they still like that small town. So when I'm in the car driving these people around, these families trying to make their decision, I say, hey guys, we have Mayberry. Cabot is a Mayberry. So, okay. So that's what we have. We have a Mayberry. Okay, let's fast forward 30 years. We're not a Mayberry anymore. We're bigger. We're larger. We still have the Mayberry atmosphere of the small town, but we have a lot of amenities here, and it's growing. Our school district still surpasses everybody. You've got an opportunity to support them. Keep supporting them. Also, in my real estate career, we have had the opportunity to have the city of Cabot present to our office what's going on in the future of Cabot. I was blown away with this presentation. So being on this SALT team, I said, let's bring this presentation to you. So with us today, with the city of Cabot and the economic development, is Alicia Paisno. And she has a PowerPoint for you. So she's going to take over from here.
Thank you so much. Well, good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to allow me to come and speak with you about the city of Cabot. You guys are continuously talking about growth within your congregation and what you have here within the confines of this building. What I'm going to do is kind of take a walk outside of this building. When we did our census numbers, the city of Cabot has about 28,000 people. However, do you want to know what the fastest growing city in the state of Arkansas is by percentage? The city of Austin. The second fastest growing city in the state of Arkansas, the city of Ward. Both of those are in our what we call our trade area. So when we are talking to potential businesses, investors, developers, and even families, our trade area is about 110,000 people within a 3-minute to 5-minute drive of the city center. Just go ahead and wrap your head around that for a second. That is today. And we know, again, with our great school districts that we have, that this is only going to continue to excel and go. So what we want to do is be able to have strategic growth. While we love the charming atmosphere of our beautiful community, we know people are coming, so we've got to be very conscious about how we grow with them, because if we do not control where they go, they will control it for us. So if you would go ahead, I think the slide for the, yes. Did you guys know we have a traffic problem? I know, it's shocking. We're all shocked right now. Absolutely. So whenever, wrong way. I'm gonna go back. Got it. All right, so again, a way for us to address just one of the issues that we have for traffic, we're gonna go ahead and talk about the interstate. So in 2020, RDOT allocated, and yeah, that's a pretty big number, $40 million with an additional $10 million just to this Cabot area for us to address the interchange and the traffic issues that we have at exit 16 and exit 19. So this is a widening of the interstate between those two overpasses, and then also those interchanges specifically. So whenever the feds allocated more money for infrastructure a couple of years ago, RDOT decided that they were going to go back to the feds and get more money, expand that scope of the project. So that took our project back to zero. We were actually through engineering. So we are a little bit behind of where we hoped that we would be as a city. But in August of 2023, the widening project will go out for a bid-let date, which means that it will start of its full engineering, and we're going to start that construction process. And then also in February of 2024, the 2 interchanges will go out to bid. So this is a very exciting opportunity, because if you've ever been stuck on Main Street to go across to Walmart, where you literally say things that are not appropriate and you'd say a lot of prayers. So what we're going to be doing is, this is just a proposed rendering of what that looks like so you guys can get an aerial vision. Again, that's at 16 at Heber Springs and at 19 at the Main Street, and then between the two. So it will look exactly like as you're pushing up north through Austin. All right, you guys ready? We are going to build a spewy. Yay. And the crowd goes wild. Absolutely. When we first got this proposal to us, and let me remind you, this is not the city of Cabot coming up with these ideas. This is RDOT, and they have full jurisdiction over these roadways, and we just say thank you with your money and fix our problem. A spewy is a single point urban interchange, and I know it's hard to kind of read all of that down through there. These are very popular up in the Midwest and up north. If you've been to the Branson area, they have some spewies up there. We joke that those are spewies like 1.0, and you feel like, you know, you're taking your life into somebody else's hands. So they've evolved through there. Arkansas actually put in their first spewy last year in the Bentonville area. So we will be 2 and 3 for Arkansas. And it's basically one interchange, one light in the middle, and lanes of traffic go this way, they go this way, and they go that way. So moving forward, this is exit 19. If you'll see those orange areas there, that's our existing roadway and our existing roadbed, those big looping clover leaves coming in. The yellow is that streamline of how it's going to be coming up very quickly, and the stacking will be more so on that widening along 167. Yes, you will see there is a roundabout. Yay! We're excited. That is at Rockwood. The Rockwood interchange will be configured as well. The light that leads to the next light, where you guys are always stuck, both of those will be abandoned according to RDOT, and we will be putting in a roadway right there at the intersection where the Walmart is. So if you've been paying attention on social media and see these community pages talking about that particular interchange and the potholes that continuously plague that intersection, we do not have control over those as a city, because that is a state highway, and we beg and plead for them to fix it. But they do know that there's a longer plan in place, so they're not going to be putting a lot of time or effort into that. They just keep filling them. We keep going over them, tearing them up. We fill and do that and tell that. But know that there is a plan moving forward, and it is close, a lot closer than it was a few years ago. This is exit 16 at 321. The hot pink spaces are existing roadways, and again, you'll see that yellow. So the light, as you're coming into town, the light that leads to a light that leads to a light, those will all be removed as well. And we're going to have a much faster and streamlined ways. You will not be going under the overpass to loop around to get back when you head north of Highway 5. You're actually going to be getting off and merging out if you're going to go to 321 or go up to Highway 5. So why do we get this funding? So we talked about the growth pattern within the city of Cabot and the Cabot area. At the top of the page, you'll see 2017, 2041. When they put those strips out across the highway and you roll over them, you always wonder, where does that information go? Well, this is one of those places that information went. So in 2017, these were the numbers. Again, 34,000 people came up that roadway. 21,000 came down Main Street. Think about that number, just down Main Street alone. And they projected that in 2041, we could potentially see those types of numbers. But as we know from 2017 to today, we're ticking up on those numbers more aggressively today. And so we will surpass that long before 2040. And I anticipate we'll have that within the next couple of years. Let's go to the next slide, which is the Unity Health. Oh, you know what? We're going to do this one. This is great. I'll take this one. All right, so we also talked about growth, and we talked about our students, and we talked a lot about families in this congregation. So one of the things that our Parks and Rec is so fantastic about is really supporting our youth within our community. Another interesting point is when you talk about tourism. And I know sometimes you think about tourism and you think about those things of like different communities that have like amusement parks and those big types of things. What tourism looks like for the city of Cabot is very different, and we're a sports tourism community. And if you are a young family and you have young children or grandchildren and have sat out at one of our beautiful ball fields or in our amazing facilities, soccer, basketball, baseball, our football fields, everything else, you realize that we are really invested in sports in this community. So, 2 years ago, about a year and a half ago, we presented to the voters of Cabot 10 separate ballot initiatives. This was a rededication of an existing sales tax that we had, and because of the climate of the economy at that time, we were able to leverage that existing sales tax, and basically, I'm just gonna say we refinanced the house. It would be exactly the same method if you went to your home, to your bank, and you said, we have a house, and the interest rates are better, and we're going to refinance the house, and we're going to pull some equity out of that house, and we're going to get a lower interest rate, and we're going to actually get a lower rate per month. We did the exact same concept, just to the tune of about $80 million. So it was a little bit bigger than what we would do in our homes. So one of the ballot initiatives that we had on there was in for Parks and Rec. And so we actually are expanding our park system up north at Regional Park. Many of you may not have had an opportunity to visit Regional Park. It's got the BMX bike trail up there. It's got a gun range that is only used for our police department. It's actually a beautiful piece of property that we've owned. And we actually added an additional 100 acres just to the north of that to make that over 300 total acres of that entire park. With this was a long-term plan to create a fully regional park that they have called The Grounds, which will have amenities and recreation for families and visitors to come visit. Along with that, we partnered with Judge Irwin and talked about how can we fix traffic, and that we know that we're going to be adding a lot of people to this specific area. So how can we fix traffic? So that proposed road that you see is an engineering plan that was presented to us by the county that goes basically from exit 21. And again, let me go back so that you guys understand. This is actually where the star is at exit 21, so the next exit up from us. And so, go back, there we go. This is a proposed road that is going to be coming off of exit 21, right there where that street shop is, and heading all the way to Omni Farms and the backside of Greystone. This is an opportunity because of the traffic that we're seeing and the growth in the Greystone area, that they don't have a lot of safety access to get out. They can either go out one way, down out Highway 5, or meander back through some pretty treacherous roads coming out through the backside of Austin. So if we can find them another pathway to move people safely through our community, and this is a proposed route presented by the county. So this is a proposed site plan of what that can look like, that entire 300+ acre park. If you'll see down at this corner down through here, that's where our existing street department currently resides. We're actually going to be relocating them. If you'll see all those green and red and blue lines, those are biking and walking trails that we will have within our community. So if you'd like to go out and enjoy a beautiful day like today, but don't want to be on a roadway and want to enjoy some very, very nice nature environment, these are safely protected bikeways and roadways that we will have that will be laid through that entire campus. There's a skateboard park that we received a grant funding for, so that's already a funded project. And then we have a proposed route to this sports complex, which I'll highlight in just a second. You'll see to the north of there, we're also looking at expanding our soccer fields, and they have plans for a long-term recreation RV type environment, which is going to be for those tourists who are coming for short term, or if you have family members who are coming to visit the area and have an RV, we have a safe place within our park system that they can reside. This is not finalized through the Parks and Rec system at this point. They have set it before their commission to make sure that that is a finalized plan, but I wanted to get you guys kind of a general idea of what that could look like for us as a community. Also up there in that regional park area, we are building our police and fire training facility. This is another one of those ballot initiatives that we passed in 2021 to expand the training that was needed for our police and fire teams, and then also give them another location, which is north in the North Cabot area, to better service the backside of that Greystone area. As you can see, there's going to be a firehouse where those guys can get up and actually train in a smoke firehouse and carry those backpacks. I don't want to do that, but I know people who do. And there's also going to be that active shooter training module that is also where they can do some field training directly here. We do not have anything like this in our region. Right now, our first responders actually have to leave our community and go out and spend time. So we have our shifts that are on duty that are here taking care of the residents of our community, and then we're paying our officers to go do training, which is required by their job outside of our city in the time. So in order for us to actually save money, we're going to be able to do all of this here, right here in the city of Cabot. It's also an amazing opportunity because we're going to partner with our agencies in the region, and they're very excited. So we actually get to be the crown jewel when it comes to our police and fire training and get them to come here and train with us. This is really the showstopper of the day for me, you guys. While if you do not have somebody who is in basketball or volleyball, it's really hard to understand just how big of a movement this is across the country. So this is our, gosh, I cannot remember the last date. I think it's an 80,000 square foot facility. I think that's where we're sitting at. I can't quote that right now. But it will have 6 basketball courts, what will convert to 12 volleyball courts, with 2 indoor soccer fields that will convert to U8 baseball infielding and batting practices. This will give us a year-round opportunity for us to have sporting events held for our Cabot residents who are currently on these types of teams, and also a recruitment opportunity for us to bring in tournaments from outside the state and also within the state right here within our community. The best part about this for me, from an economic development standpoint, is when they come to visit our community, it gives us an opportunity to highlight who we are as Cabot. And as they walk around, they go to our parks, they see our beautiful amenities, they eat in our restaurants. 9 times out of 10, when a family comes to visit a substantial facility like that, they realize this is a town that they want to be in. So it's just another opportunity for us to highlight what a great community the city of Cabot is. And of course, back to our schools, it's the entire package that we're going to be presenting to a potential visitor who will end up being a resident. All right, that last one. So one of the other things that we talk a lot about in economic development is job creation. One of my biggest exports from the city of Cabot are its people. It's our students that leave our city after they graduate, and it's the families that get in their car every single day and drive to their jobs not within the city of Cabot. So that first one is a way to stop that, where we want those family members, if they want them to go off to college, but when they come back and want to raise their families, they're going to come right back home to the city of Cabot. And then we would like to find ways that we can actually create jobs, high-paying, good-paying jobs for the city of Cabot. So in 2019, Unity Health purchased about 70 acres at exit 21. If you're heading up there and you're going back towards 321, you'll see the two signs on either side. And this was really a whole cohesive campus that they are envisioning. They also did purchase the Jacksonville North Metro Emergency Room, which just opened recently. And so now that they've got that done, they're starting to shift their attention back up north to us. And at the very bottom of that, you'll see something which is really important for us: 750 jobs. That is substantial, because these are, I'm not a doctor. I mean, I stayed in a Holiday Inn Express one time, but it doesn't make me a doctor. But what this does is there is going to be just run the gamut, because this will be their entire, basically all of the facilities and all of their administration will be moving to the city of Cabot. With that, we actually took that as a call to arms of how we can make sure that they are here and they do exactly what they said they were going to do. And so in 2022, the city of Cabot was awarded a $1.9 million grant, and this is an EDA grant. We are only one of 2 cities in the entire state of Arkansas that were awarded this grant. It's a pretty substantial lift for us, because we were fighting, and I say fighting, with other cities who were highlighting their projects as well. So the partnership with Unity Health, the dedication of this administration, was the reason why we were able to receive this grant. We did allocate $570,000 of general funds that would also match that. That was part of the grant requirements. But this is for infrastructure. And when we talk about infrastructure, it's all the things that we just talked about in the meeting a minute ago. It is all the work that's on the ground. It's the wastewater, it's the water, it's the electrical, it's all the things that are going to get anything or incentivize any development to that area. This is a proposed campus that Unity Health has presented to us as what their concept is going to be. If you'll look to the left of this slide, that's the interstate. That's 167. That's 38, that runs right through there. That is a 6-building campus. Each of those are about 4 stories tall. Again, this is going to have all of your specialty clinics in there. This is going to have a long-term surgical clinic in there, so we don't have to leave our community whenever we need to have those procedures that require us to stay in a hospital long-term. It will have emergency hospital in there. But the most interesting thing about Unity Health and their mission is really different than any of the other hospitals. They actually require that their upper management and their upper leadership actually live in the Cabot area. So all those people who are doctors and administrators and nurses are not going to be our export every day. They're going to be our neighbors and potentially sitting next to you in this congregation. Just a perception of where that is on the road. Again, there's Highway 38, and they own both sides of that. Their idea is to create a campus, and because of their long-term mission and because of their mission as an organization, because they are a nonprofit, they are out of Searcy, if you're familiar with the Unity Health that's in the Searcy area. They wanted to make sure that when someone came and came to their campus for medical care, that they had everything that they need, that they had hospitals, they had the hospitals there, they had restaurants that were there, they also would be able to have lodging and possibly entertainment, so that everything they would need would be within walking distance of everything from that hospital. All right, I rolled through things very quickly for you guys for the sake of time, but I will make myself available afterwards. But the message that I really want to just emphasize is we are growing, we have been growing, and we will continue to grow. And so strategic growth is important to keep the characteristics and the charm of our community along with that long-term plans so that we can grow successfully. So again, thank you so much for your time. Oh, we got a question already. Yes.
Your expected number of residents in 10 years?
In 10 years? So within the city of Cabot, as I'm sure Linda can also attest, we are really running out of land. So whenever you're talking about just the city of Cabot, we have kind of some limited capacities. But we typically, when I'm running numbers, I don't run the numbers because I have to look at the unincorporated areas, and then I have to look at Austin and Ward because, again, that is also in our trade area. Our percentages will continue to increase, especially with the work that we're doing in our downtown revitalization and with our sports tourism. And then we have a lot of housing, and I'm actually putting together an entire housing report of all the subdivisions that are currently approved through planning in Cabot, Austin, and Ward, so that we can present that to the community, because that is to the tune of probably 200 to 300. And that's just an easy, no, 200 to 300 homes that are currently through planning right now today, that are not built, but are slated to be built. Sorry? It's a sliding scale. I don't have a number for that. Again, because of, I can't predict where someone is going to buy a piece of land that is not currently for sale. If there's 100 acres that is not for sale right now, I cannot put that into my projections when it comes to that could potentially be a subdivision. All right, thank you so much.
Didn't I tell you you'd be blown away with this? Did you have any idea what was going on in Cabot? Did y'all know we have 2 hotels going up? Some people don't even know that. Did you know we're having a Chick-fil-A come to town? I know that's important news. We have a lot of things coming into Cabot. But with this kind of growth that you're seeing, I want you to realize who is investing into this community. We have the Department of Transportation. This is going to be I-57 eventually. That's why they're doing all this. And they are investing in Cabot. Unity Health is investing in Cabot. You saw that they're bringing jobs, they're bringing facilities. When they build that hospital, they will also attract restaurants and more hotels and facilities, clinics around their hospital. The sky's the limit. We have our school district that's still into our system here that's just wonderful. We have the future. Congregation, do you want to be proactive or reactive? That's the decision that we're faced with. You saw what we have going. We have to make a decision. We have children and grandchildren and generations to follow that we need to prepare for. This is not an overnight situation either. It's not going to be a year. We don't know when. I did personally talk to an executive with Unity Health, and I asked him, do you have any spare land of that 65 acres that you might want to sell to us? They're interested, but they cannot commit. Of course they can't. They're still working on their development there. But that is an option of maybe attaching to their development. Chuck?
Know if the schools are getting close to capacity?
No, I can't answer that. Usually when the schools get to capacity, then they build another school. And, we are building a school every 2 years.
I would say if you have an opportunity to go to Cabot School Facebook page, I know that they're getting ready to propose their millage, and it will be no additional cost to taxpayers. It's kind of the same thing that we did as a city, but they have an entire list of all of the facilities that are going to be expanding, and so that will be coming to the vote very soon too. So I encourage everyone to go to the Cabot School District Facebook page, website, and if you click on that, there's a whole detail of exactly what that is, and the administrator that can speak directly to that.
It's very important to keep our schools going. That's the heartbeat of Cabot. The military base also. In fact, do you know that they call Cabot North Base Housing? I didn't know if anybody knew that. Now, one of the questions is, how much land do we need? This facility right now that we own currently is about 4 acres. That includes everything, the parking, pantry, buildings, 4 acres. And we're maxed out. We need probably 10 acres, maybe more. So the job now is there something out there that we could possibly purchase and make plans to build in the future? And there are options out there. There's several up on 2nd Street. There's some down 367. There's several areas. And we've gone out there and looked at these properties. They all have pros, they all have cons. So we're not to that point of buying something right now. The point is to you, congregation, are you going to support us? David, up to you.
Does anybody have any questions? I take the mic? All right, we're not going to sing right now, are we? A lot of good work. Thanks for the SALT team for putting some of this together. Has anybody been part of an 800 to 1,200 member church worshipped on a regular basis? I have. Really hard to know the people down the pew from you, 4 down, 10 down. Not debating what's been brought up here. I think it's factual what's been told. But I think it's a little bit not true that you're going to know everybody if we're all in one 1,200, 1,000 foot or 1,000 person thing. That's just one thought. David, your numbers are good. Your stats, man, I love your numbers. The OCU choir was here this afternoon. I think that bumped to 1045, but I think your numbers are still valid. Was the 300 seat, 90 seat, is that what we're looking at here?
Probably a little bit more than that. That was an October count. 390 seats was what we had in here, what I counted in October.
What was the max?
We were in the
92? Was that the
we
one?
were in the 480, 490 range around the holidays, trying to make room
Right.
for, but that.
That includes the back row of it.
Yeah, that we gotta do, we can't do that.
Right. I was looking at these seats and how, and you alluded to this, but the seats and how they're separated like they are, they're about 52 inches apart. And if we pull these back together to what we saw before, it'd be about 40. Then quick math, not factual, just throwing some numbers out here, we may be able to gain 125 to 150 extra seating per service. I think that's something to think about, especially as if we're talking about some of the things we're talking about doing, that could buy us some time. That's something to ponder. What are our next steps? And I'll step down after this. What are our next steps after this? Are there other discussions that are going to be brought up, such as possibly planning a church? We just talked about Austin and Ward. Is that an option? Is that other things? That may not be what you guys were asked to do, but is that what would be considered? And the second question was, if and when we do move to the expansion part, are we going to do like we did with our expansion last time and maintain some dollar figures to show that we're going to be able to meet that? Because if you're looking at quick math, a $10 million building, you're going to go up on a rate monthly about $71,000 compared to 15 what we're paying now. So you'd pay roughly over the life of the loan, you'd pay $17.1 million, but that's 7 in interest. So I would hope that we would consider doing some type of let's vet it, let's set some money aside, let's run it for 9 months to a year, and then bring it back in. So I'll step down. Thanks.
I know David did calculations, moved each row 3 inches, and took out some middle row. How many is that? And that's
COVID made us go to what you see here. Right. Is the reason why we have what we have.
This is being broadcast.
Okay. I'm a mover. I can't. And that's okay. COVID made us do this. Okay. Of course, first for that COVID, they had cardboard pictures that he had to preach to. That wasn't very great. But anyway, when we first came back, it was even wider than you see here. Okay. It was extremely wide, and that made us adjust. And you know that time frame. There's been a couple adjustments. Are we where we were when we first moved in this auditorium at the end of 2015 after remodeling? No, we're not. When we first set up chairs and bought chairs for this complex, for this building right here, the front row was closer. Between every row was a lot closer, okay? And we took every chair 5 foot. We got to have 5 foot that way, up that way, across the back. Same thing here. We went by that, which is a safety thing, fire marshal thing, and then we just filled everything else in. We didn't have the aisle down here. And no, we're not there now. We're not there now. We wasn't there for the combined service this past December. We wasn't there, okay? We didn't close it in. So I don't really remember what our number was right after we filled this room with chairs that was tight as it was back then. So I would be, guess what?
425 is what we were running originally without that center row and
425?
Yes.
Robert,
To be legal, 425 is about what we can run.
Well, Robert, when we first did this, I think there was closer to 480. We got luxurious roads right now. I mean, before they were very tight.
But
And
that was, that number was before to the safety,
oh, that's exactly right.
Code.
Yeah, when we first opened up this, that's how many.
So to answer your question, I don't know, we're talking, the number that I remembered was in the 480s and then a 425 range. It's somewhere in that piece, okay? Because like we said, the center aisles are major. You can't take these center, not this one, you can do away with that one. But these that go to the exit door, you can't make that 5 foot. It's got to be 6 foot minimum. I mean, pure 6 foot, every foot of it, all the way. It's even better if it's 6 at the front and 7 at the back to let people get out of here immediately. So what it will actually hold, somewhere in that range. Again, let's remember that number is reduced because of the complexity of it as we try to fill. You'd have to have ushers that are going to say, come with me, let me go sit you down. And I'm not saying that's negative. A lot of churches have to do that. I'm just saying there's a little bit that goes along with that. So what is our max that we could have where? Somewhere in the 425 range upward. I wouldn't go as high as 450, but somewhere in that range probably, and still stay safe. That answer your question? Yes, sir.
As, you know, Christian educator, I look at the numbers up here in our children's department. And you're right, you can't put 14 kids in a 14 capacity room and have it. And Cabot has, his ministry here has resulted in a lot of our growth.
Right.
And if we're gonna have young families come in with their children, we've gotta have room for them in top-notch facilities.
Right.
And to attract those families in. And those are families that's what makes us grow, those young families. And I look at this and I say that 65% capacity in the children's rooms, once you get to that, the young families are going to stop coming here and go somewhere else. And so I think our education space is more critical than our auditorium space. We do not have enough.
Yes, because we would have to make, there's basically no room for growth across the atrium in that building. We cannot go either side now, today. The only thing that we could do is adjust what we're doing with Bible classes. We have 3 adult Bible classes. You would have to empty one of those and not have 3 adult classes in that building, this and the one that I do, which is 5. You'd have to stop some of that adult class, and that building would end up being pure children's building. Okay, so now I'm catering to the children, which is I'm great to do, but I got some things I got to do to make that happen in this facility, and you need to understand that. Yes.
Brother, that's just talking about a short-term fix for a long time.
Oh yeah, no, that's right. And I'm just saying that's an adjustment.
Why can't we go ahead and get land now?
Well,
it's an investment.
I'm just saying there's some things you'd have to do. Anything you do right now is going to gain you room in every category, which is Bible class, worship services, all ages across the board. All of that is going to have to be more square footage. And now, if you decided this is what we feel like we want to do as a church, then you have a pretty long window. If I hired an architect today and we were going to go somewhere else, we're still 2 years down the road. So don't be thinking that you won't have to make other adjustments in that 2-year period to modify what you're doing just to make it to the end of the 2-year period.
I'm going to go ahead and speak on behalf of the security team. I see that we have a couple other members here, but this is a very real issue because even though we could move the rows closer together, if we did have any type of genuine emergency, for anyone who has fire training, and I see several people in here who do have that training and professional expertise, but if we do have an actual fire, we're going to have some serious bottleneck situations where we have a lot of people trying to get out of certain exits, and most people aren't even familiar with all of the exits available. And not just the fire, but if we have any type of, and I hope it and pray it never happens, but if we have any type of law enforcement emergency where we have a shooting event, the closer the rows are, the shorter our seconds will be to escape with our lives. So that's a very real issue that the security team has addressed. We have looked at those things, and so whether it's fire or a shooting event, which I pray never happens to this church family that I love very dearly, those are issues that have to be addressed for safety concerns for our entire flock. And so I appreciate that our SALT team is looking at this issue seriously, because a lot of people don't think about that, but we have to protect our members here, so that's very relevant.
I think the biggest thing that we really wanted everyone to understand today is in this facility that we have right now and the condition that it's in great condition, it really is. We've maintained it and we took care of it. That's very important. We've done that. I think everybody needs to leave here today understanding fully what the limitations of this building really is. That's the important thing. What direction we go in the future is going to take an absolute lot of prayer and a lot of seeking the Lord of what He wants us to do in that area, and which direction we could go. Of course, buying some land and building a brand new building is an avenue. There's other avenues. David's brought up an avenue. Did we ever consider, or did we do more discussion around planting a church? All of that stuff. I get all of that. The biggest thing we get out of this today is Cabot is growing hugely, hugely. And what we have in this building, in this facility, will not last us much longer. Now, if I could spin that little bubble and say it's going to only last till this date, I'd do that for you, but we can't do that. Okay, we just can't. And but we'd love to have that information, but it's coming is the important thing. So what is the fix? It's probably at the level that we're at. That's my comments.
Well, there has been a study that when you reach 80% of capacity, you stop growing.
Well,
You saw in the slides.
the study,
I even have it down as close to 65% when we're talking about spiritually teaching our children for the future. When you get 65% capacity in the classroom, your learning capability begins to go away. Can I really teach them? I can. I could physically put them in a room. I can put the chairs in there. What are they going to get? Not what you think.
the ACU study, which is the most current of those studies, said a church hits 80% of capacity, and you're going to do one of two things. You're going to grow or you're going to wither. And there's no staying where you are. And if you're not, and when you hit 80% capacity, you start to wither. Now, if your children's classrooms, 65% is the number. Your parking lot is 75%. Because if they can't pull onto the parking lot and immediately find a convenient place to park, they drive off.
We're about to run out of time, but let me just say, I went with Bill O'Brien several months ago to Conway to look at churches, the way they operated their food pantry, that did it without government assistance was what we were looking at. But also, Bill's cousin took us on a tour of the building, and they had a special section just for the young kids that was, is very secure, which unfortunately we need these days, that we, may need improvements here. Teen Center was there where teens could do a lot more than just Sunday morning or Wednesday night activities. It was a great area for them, adult classes. Outside they had playgrounds for the kids. They had volleyball courts, a fire pit out there that you could go just at drop of a hat and have a weenie roast out there. There's a lot of things. We don't know what the function of the church is going to be in 10 years or 20 years for sure. So, it's more than just Sunday morning. We're not talking about just what we need on Sunday morning. It's, for the classes, but it's mainly, like Linda said, children and grandchildren. So, looking, not to insult anybody, but, not too many of us in here are real spry. And, we don't know how long this is going to take, but, if you've got children or grandchildren that might ever live in Cabot and worship here in the future, this is for them. Tim, would you come forward? And like I said, if you have any questions, in addition, see one of the members of the committee or one of the shepherds, and if you want a copy of all of this information, just see Susan.
We just have a few minutes left before worship begins. Would you pray with me, please? Thank you, God, for all that you do for us and help us with and do for us. We thank you for the work that's been done thus far, and we ask that no matter what, that your will be done. We ask that you'd give us wisdom, that you'd help us to be examples for you. We ask that you'd help us be a light to the world. We thank you for your blessed Son. It's through his name that we pray. Amen.